decimal places, like what you've just been doing, where you find that decimal point, you go, I want 1, 2 decimal places, and then you round off, okay? Done that before, and we've practiced today. But significant figures is a different way of rounding numbers. It's more commonly used in sciences, like science subjects. They like to round things to significant figures because they often deal with very large numbers. That makes sense to round those to significant figures. And you do use it a bit in senior high school maths as well, but for you guys, you just need to know a little bit about them. You just need to know basically how to round with them, not to do any further operations with them later on. Okay, so to round something to significant figures, unlike the decimal place one where you find the decimal point, you start counting the significant figures from the very start, meaning the left-hand side of the number. Okay, so if this first number that I have here, this is back in the examples, on the examples page, this first number here, that 3 would be my first significant figure. The 5 would be the second significant figure. Okay, the 8 would be the third, and the 6 would be the fourth. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, right across the page there, 4 significant figures. So you can count them like that. And it seems pretty simple when you say it like that. You just count and start at the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, done. However, zeros. The zeros try to make things a little bit difficult for us. Zeros are significant if they're between other numbers. So for example, 207, there's a 0 in the middle there, that would have 3 significant figures, 1, 2, 3, just like normal. Okay, if I move that 0 to the end, that is now only 2 significant figures. We don't count zeros when they're at an end of a number as being significant. The zeros have the weird rules, okay? Every other number is normal, it's only the zeros. So zeros on the end, that would be 2. And the other spot is, this looks like the zeros at the end of a number, but if it's after a decimal place, that 0 then counts again back to 3 significant figures. Okay? So the only time that a 0 won't... Okay, no, there is another... Oh, wait, one more option. If the 0 was in front, that 0 doesn't count. So zeros, when they're at the end of a big number or at the beginning of a decimal, don't count, but they do count if they are between or at the end of a decimal. All right? Most of the time you can avoid that though, because most of the time we have other numbers in there. All right? So let's have a look. Back to our question 3A here. If I want to round that to 3 significant figures, two significant figures. The 3 is the first one, the 5 is the second one. They're the highlighted ones, they're my 2 significant figures. Just like with the decimals, I then want to round off everything after that. So if the number after that is 8, I'm going to round it up, right? So that means that the 3 is going to stay the same. The 5 rounds up to be a 6. And then we have to round off everything afterwards. Now, but when it was a decimal, we just kind of chopped it off because you don't need to say 0.50000. Okay, you don't put them in when they're after decimal places. But we need to keep this in the 3000s, right? We can't just make 3,500 something 36. So when it's a big number like that, we have to turn those into zeros, which is why those zeros aren't significant with the ending number, because then I'd still have 4, okay? So that is 2 significant figures. The zeros at the end don't count. The 3 and the 6 are my 2 significant figures. All right, let's practice it again. I want to round that big decimal number there to 2 significant figures. Start from the very left-hand side. The 2 is significant, the 3 is significant. 1, 2, got them. I want to round off everything after that. I have a 0. Am I going to round down or up? That was an easy question. Zeros round? Down. Good. So that means the 2 and the 3 stay exactly the same, and everything else rounds off down to zeros. So I already had a 0, the 7 is a 0, the 8 is a 0. Once you hit the decimal points, you stop. You don't need to write 0.000, okay? We've kept our place value, it's 23,000. They're all still in their place values. I don't need to write decimal places. All right? Let's do one more. Part C. Counting my significant figures. Now this is the very last scenario that I told you about. I have zeros in the front. So when I start counting my significant figures, am I going to count those zeros? No. Okay, they don't count as significant. I'm going to highlight them because I have to keep them there. But my first significant figure is the 7, and my next one is the 6. The zeros at the front don't count. So after that 6, I have an 8. Should I round up for the 8 or down? Up. So my final answer is going to be, I keep the 0, I keep that 0, I keep that 7, but I have to round that 6 up to be a 7 as well. Okay, and that's it. You have rounded to 2 significant figures. Question 4 is, this is where you might see it. You might be able to use your rounding techniques a bit, in a bit more of a calculation scenario. So it says, estimate the answer to the following questions by rounding each number to 1 significant figure. Okay, 1 significant, not 2, we're doing 1 now. And you can use your calculator to check how reasonable your answer is, to see how close. Because anytime you're estimating, it's not going to be exactly the same, but it should be close. Okay? So 1 number at a time. I want 1 significant figure. So 27, that 2 is my 1 significant figure. Right? Round off after that. I have a 7. Should I round up? Should I round down? What should I do? Round up. So that means the 2 becomes a 3, and the 7 just changes to a 0. Okay? Then I want to do the next number. So I've got a plus sign, next number. My 1 significant figure for that is what? Where's my 1 significant figure? Start from the very left-hand side. The 1. Very left-hand side, the first number is my significant figure. It's a 1. The next number is a 3 though, which is what you're probably trying to tell me. The next number is a 3, which tells me how to round up or down. Should I round up or down? Down. Okay, Ashton, can you tell me what I should write down for that rounded number? It's rounding down.
1.
So 1. And what happens to the rest of those numbers there?
It's still a 3, right?
No, we've rounded that down. I only want to keep 1 number that's not a 0. So I've kept the 1. Everything else has to become zeros.
Oh, so 0.
0, how many zeros?
3.
2, 3. We don't need 1 for the 5, just after decimal point, okay? So that's it. Because it was 1,300, so it's still going to be 1,000. I've just rounded it down to 1,000, right? Okay, and the last number, where is my 1 significant, which one is my 1 significant figure that I want? I've got zeros there. Do they count as my significant figures? Nope. So which one's my first significant figure? The 6. Okay, so there's my significant figure. These ones here, I've got to keep them because they're in front. I've got to keep them, but they're not significant. Okay, after that 6 is a 4. Do 4 round up or down? I know it says I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but that's what you've got to do to yourself when you're thinking it through. 4's round down. All right, what's my answer? So you've got to keep the zeros out the front. So I've got 0.00. I'm rounding down so the 6 stays the same. So 0.06, the 4 disappears because that would be the second one. I don't want to say the second significant figure. I only want 1, the 6. Okay? So I have rounded 3 numbers to 1 significant figure. Now we just want to calculate what that is equal to. And I'm happy for you to use your calculator to do that. So can you type in 30 plus 1,000 times 0.006? What do you get?
36.
Yeah. Okay, that's our estimate. That whole big yucky thing we've estimated to be about 36. Let's see how close we actually are to the real answer. If you round things well, come back to this very starting problem and type that in. The whole big messy one from the beginning. Type in that big long messy one and see what you get. So on the calculator, so I'm writing there, on the calculator, if you type that in, there's going to be some decimal places there, so you can tell me those two.
75.5056.
Yeah. 056, was it? Is that what you said? 056. 50. Isn't that what I wrote?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh good. Okay, so how close is that? Okay, we've gone and rounded all those numbers, but we estimated 36 and the real number was 35.50 something. It was pretty close, even though we rounded, okay?